The rain had been merciless for 3 days straight, soaking the cracked earth of Rahim's small farm just outside his forgotten village. For years, Rahim had fought the land like a soldier fights a losing war. At 38, his hands were rough, his back permanently bent, and his hope stretched thin like the fragile crops that barely survived each season. Debts hung over him like dark clouds, and every failed harvest whispered the same cruel question: how much longer can you hold on? That evening, the sky roared louder than usual. Thunder rolled across the fields, and lightning split the horizon into blinding fragments. Rahim was securing the last of his tools when he heard it, a distant, unnatural scream cutting through the storm. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't wind. It was metal tearing through the sky. He looked up just in time to see a small aircraft spiraling wildly, smoke trailing behind it like a dying comet. His heart stopped. Within seconds, the plane disappeared beyond the far end of his wheat field, followed by a violent explosion that shook the ground beneath his worn boots. For a moment, Rahim froze. He was a struggling farmer with barely enough to feed himself. What could he possibly do? But then another sound reached him, faint and fragile, a cry carried by the wind. Instinct overpowered fear. He ran. Mud splashed against his legs as the rain lashed his face. Flames flickered in the distance, painting the stormy night in shades of orange and black. The wreckage was scattered across his field, pieces of twisted metal embedded in the soil he had plowed just days ago. And there, a few meters away from the burning remains, lay a woman. She was dressed in a torn pilot's uniform, her blonde hair soaked and streaked with mud, a thin line of blood tracing down her forehead. She wasn't moving. Rahim's breath caught in his throat. He had never been this close to death before. Carefully, he knelt beside her. "Can you hear me?" he asked, his voice trembling. No response. He checked for a pulse the way he had once seen in a television drama at a neighbor's house. There it was, weak, but steady. Relief flooded through him. Without thinking twice, he removed his shawl and pressed it gently against her wound. The flames were growing stronger, the heat licked at his back. If the plane exploded again, they would both be gone. With every ounce of strength left in his exhausted body, Rahim lifted her into his arms and stumbled away from the wreckage. Carrying her through the rain felt like carrying the weight of destiny itself. She was lighter than he expected, yet the responsibility felt enormous. He brought her to his small farmhouse, a modest brick structure with a leaking roof and flickering electricity. Gently, he laid her on his only bed and lit a kerosene lamp. Her face looked different in the soft glow, strong yet vulnerable. He cleaned her wound with warm water and the last piece of antiseptic he had saved for emergencies. Hours passed as he sat beside her, listening to the storm and wondering who she was. Why had she been flying alone in such weather? And how had fate chosen his field out of all places? Just before dawn, she stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing sharp blue irises clouded with confusion. "Where am I?" she whispered weakly. Rahim leaned forward, relief washing over him again. "You crashed in my field. You're safe now," he said gently. Panic flickered across her face as fragments of memory returned. "The engine, it failed. I tried to stabilize," her voice broke. Rahim reassured her, offering water and steady words. Over the next few days, as the rain finally gave way to sunlight, she regained her strength. Her name was Aaliyah Carter. She spoke with calm authority and carried herself with quiet confidence, even while injured. She told him she was a pilot transporting important documents for her company when the unexpected mechanical failure struck. Rahim never asked about her wealth or background. To him, she was simply someone in need. He cooked simple meals of lentils and bread, apologizing for their plainness. She never complained. In fact, she watched him with a kind of curiosity, how he woke before sunrise, how he spoke to his crops as if they were children, how despite his struggles, he still found reasons to smile. One evening, as they sat outside watching the golden sunset stretch across the fields, she asked, "Why did you help me? You could have walked away." Rahim shrugged. "Because it was the right thing to do. Wealth or status doesn't matter when someone needs saving." Aaliyah looked at him thoughtfully but said nothing more. A week later, black SUVs rolled into the village, startling the locals. Men in suits stepped out, scanning the area urgently. Rahim stood frozen as they approached his farmhouse. Aliyah stepped outside to meet them, now fully recovered and dressed sharply. The men addressed her with respect, "Ma'am." Rahim's confusion deepened until one of them explained, Aliyah Carter wasn't just a pilot. She was the CEO and sole heir of one of the largest aviation corporations in the country. The plane she had been flying was her own. She was a millionaire, no, a billionaire. Rahim felt his heart drop. He suddenly became painfully aware of his worn clothes, his cracked hands, his broken fences. But Aliyah walked back to him, her expression unchanged. "You saved my life," she said softly. "And you did it without expecting anything in return." The next words changed everything. She had investigated his situation quietly over the past days. She knew about his debts, his failing crops, the bank's threats. "I built my success on calculated risks," she continued. "But you reminded me that humanity matters more than profit." Within weeks, her company invested in modern irrigation systems for his farm, cleared his debts, and turned his struggling land into a thriving agricultural project that employed dozens of villagers. Yet Rahim remained the same humble man he had always been. As months passed, what began as gratitude grew into something deeper. They came from different worlds, one shaped by skyscrapers and boardrooms, the other by soil and seasons, but somehow, the storm had bridged that gap. And Rahim realized something powerful: sometimes, the greatest harvest doesn't grow from the land, it grows from a single act of kindness planted in the middle of a storm. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that even the smallest act of courage can change a life forever, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Join us for more powerful stories of hope, destiny, and unexpected love, because you never know which storm might bring your miracle.